Okay, testing just to see if the mic is connected. Yeah, okay, so today we're going to go over tempo runs, specifically why people would choose them, be it in season, out of season, or just in general, and how to program tempo runs. So it's something I would program quite a bit, and I just go through one of the ways you can program it over a 4 to 8 week period and how you would progress it as well. So we'll go into all of that today. Some of the stuff we will cover is... So let me click on this, is what makes tempo running so great, applying tempo runs to your specific goal, programming tempo runs, and then some side notes to think about at the end. So what is tempo running? Glad you asked. Tempo running is breaking your distance into fractions and hitting those fractions at a given speed to elicit a given goal. So tempo running can be done at any effort level, but it's most popularly done between 60 to 80%, and that 70% range is the most common in GAA circles. Quality running is underrated and underappreciated. So tempo running is just a tool. It isn't the be all and end all, but it is worth knowing about as a lot of people use it in season as well. So just to go through those 3 points, it's breaking your distance into fractions. So you have the goal of running a kilometre in a certain time, or running a kilometre. You can break that kilometre up into smaller distances, making sure you're hitting your times and making sure you're performing each part of that run fresh. So it's a kilometre of quality work. Oftentimes, if you're to run a kilometre straight at a certain time, maybe there's stages during that where your stride length is different, your breathing is different, your times or paces are off. Just as a quick example. Now, tempo running, the main focus of tempo running, it is 60 to 80% for a lot of people. Probably more towards 60 to 70% for a lot, because the whole goal of tempo running is to be able to be consistent. And sometimes when people overreach that 80% and maybe they don't give themselves enough rest, or they don't give themselves enough rest between sets, not just between runs, come the second set or third set, that time can kind of start to increase for the same distance, and then you're no longer doing tempo runs. You're running under a bit of fatigue. So the whole point is running while you're fresh and making sure each run is quality. So running on to the next one, we have what makes tempo running so good. So let's take the example of just 3 kilometers straight line running or 3 kilometers of tempo runs. So 3 kilometers of straight line running or straight running, you may see fluctuating paces. So at one time you could be running a 4-minute kilometre, in the next kilometre you could be running a 4:30, and then for the last one you could be running 3:50 or whatever. So you see these paces fluctuate a lot, and you might notice that if you go on a 5k run and you look at your data given through your watch or your phone, you might see there's loads of different paces throughout, so you're rarely striding the one pace for a lot of people. There's a loss of quality of movement due to it being, I suppose, a bit more monotonous and boring. There tends to be ranging qualities throughout each kilometre or even each 500 metres or whatever it is to you. Your breathing is changing constantly, so it's spiking as your pace gets faster, as your pace gets lower to try and reset. Your breathing might be out of control for some parts, it might be perfect for others. Again, this is just for the general, and it isn't that sport specific. So as a field athlete, just going for a run, it's great, it's better than nothing, no harm. I do it myself sometimes, but it just isn't as sport specific. So tempo runs allow us to hit quality runs with each one. It allows you to hit consistent paces. It allows you to focus on your breathing due to the, I suppose, consistent rest times, consistent pace, the quality running. You can keep the breathing the same throughout, and it can be made more sport specific, and it's not as boring as a result. So the way you'd make it more sport specific, of course, would be doing it on a pitch, or doing it for the length of the pitch, or if your sport is a track, doing it on a track and doing it for certain distances on the track. So due to all this, it's often less fatiguing, and that is due to the control of all of these other measurements, such as rest times, paces, breathing, everything like that. So applying it to your sport, which is what I just kind of went over there. It's be it soccer, GA, rugby, or another field sport. You can do this on the pitch with specific distances or within the lines of the pitch. So be it from corner to corner, box to box, 45 to end line to midfield, different things like that. If you're a track athlete or you like training or running on a track, you can set up an 800 meter goal maybe, and learn to hit that pace constantly at 100, 200 and 400 meters for quality runs. So a way you could do that is quite simple. If you're able to hit 200 meters at a certain pace for 3 runs, but you're seeing on that 4th run it fails, you could either break that down again, or you could change and manipulate the rest times to make sure every single time you hit it, you're hitting a certain pace. If you're a generalist who just wants to improve their 5k times, break that down, build a given time into sets and work within those time domains. So again, maybe you want to run a 25-minute 5k, which is 5 minutes per kilometer. So the first goal would be, can you run a 2:30 500 meter? Can you run a 5-minute kilometer? If you can't, break it down, aim toward that, and then start to build on that. Can you get 2 kilometers in 10 minutes? If not, let's break it down into 500 meters or 400 meters and do sets of those with the given time. So again, it's just breaking it down for quality. So programming tempo runs. So the setup for me here is I'm going to keep this GA specific here like I do with a lot of them, because a lot of the runs I would provide would be pitch specific and necessarily GA. So let's take the end line to the far 21 meter line, which roughly 100 meters. You could also take a specific position. So for example, if you're a midfielder who takes box to box or 45 to box, let's say you're an attacking midfielder or a defending midfielder, you would take the box to the midfield line or something along the lines of that. You can keep it quite specific. You can even use the sidelines if you want to make it a bit more realistic, because you're someone who plays on the wing quite a lot, just to keep the width of the pitch that you're running along that sideline. So how do you get your 70% pace? You sprint the given distance as fast as you can after, of course, your warm-up and everything, and then you divide the answer by 0.7 to find your 70% pace for the runs. It's pretty simple. That's just one easy way to do it. So let's say the end line to the far 21 meter line is going to take you 16 seconds at max effort. Here's the simple sum. 16 divided by 0.7 is 22.85. So that's just, you could just round that down to 22 seconds or 22.5 or 23 seconds, whatever. You could round it around to that. And that's the goal you hit every run to keep your 70% tempo. You go much below that, you're not going to be able to repeat that run. You go above it, it's too easy for the goal you're trying to elicit. So that's if you want to, let's say, just run off your max pace at the moment. If it's something that maybe, Jesus, I want to get that down to a 15 second max effort or 14-second max effort, then you're going to have to manipulate the times even further. So you could even push it down to 20 seconds. Bear in mind the overall intensity would jump up quite a lot if you were to bring it down by 2 seconds per run, because that's maybe 5 runs in a set of 4 sets or 3 sets. At the end of the day, it's somewhere between 15 to 20 sets or 20 runs a lot of the time. And when you're taking 2 seconds off each of those, that's a lot of time at the end of the day. So just be aware that 2 seconds may seem small to take off, but it's not in the grand scheme of the session or the week. So programming tempo runs. I am going to... One moment, I just want to make sure it's all up here. Okay, so let's take the first 4 weeks on the left. We have week 1, the goal, 70%. You've got 3 sets of 6 reps, rest 40 seconds and rest 3 minutes between sets. So looking at that, you've got 6 reps. 1 rep just equals 1 run. We'll call it the end line to the far 21 like we had discussed. So you run that in your 70% time. Again, let's go off the times we used. You hit it in 22 seconds. You rest 40 seconds. And then you do it again 5 more times. Once you have your 6 runs done, you rest for 3 minutes, and then you repeat that for 2 more sets. So 6, 12, 18 runs overall. That's that week 1 done. Week 2, you change the sets and reps is all we're changing here. So 4 sets of 5, which would make it 20 runs. Again, instead of doing 6 runs per set, you're doing 5, but you have that extra set to make up for it. Again, the 3-minute rest. Then week 3, you could go 4 to 6. 4 sets to 6 reps, so you're just adding a rep or adding a run to each set. That's going to bring it up to 24 runs. So you're going 18 runs, 20, 24. Now these are quite big jumps. This might be every second week for you. Again, rest times are the exact same. And then on week 4, 3 sets of 8 reps, so 8, 16, 24. It's the same amount as the week before, but you're putting it into 3 sets instead of 4, so you are still overloading, because instead of doing 6 runs, you're doing 8. Again, everything else stays equal. That's just one way you can do it. Now I'm going to look at the ways to overload that. So I have 4 examples of what week 5 could look like. So you could put the percentage up to 80% and repeat. So again, you start at 3 by 6, then you move to 4 by 5, 4 by 6, 3 by 8. And the only thing you're changing there is the percentage of pace has gone from 70% to 80%. You just repeat the same. Or you could even go 74%, 75%, whatever you want. You could just up it, just using 80 as it's an easy example. Another way is you could lower the rest between reps. So you go back to the start, 3 sets of 6 reps. Everything is the same, except you take that 40-second window down to a 30-second window between runs. The next one is lower rest between sets. So 3 sets of 6 reps, you're going back to your week 1. Same pace, same times. The only thing you're doing is once you have your 6 runs done, you're going to take a 2-minute rest instead of a 3-minute rest. Again, this is putting it more densely, so you're going to do the same amount of work you did on week 1, just in a less time frame. So that's going to be the overload. Again, you could manipulate the rest between sets and reps. It's quite a simple way as well. And then week 5, another one, the last one, is manipulate the distance. So do everything the exact same, just run a little bit further. So same pace, same amount of runs, same amount of sets, same rest between reps, same rest between sets. Just run the length of the pitch instead of end line to 21. So that is another way. Again, there's loads of examples which I'll go over. So these are the side notes to think about, and I'll go over some of those other examples. So there are a hell of a lot more ways to overload. Those ways that I just went over, they'll just get you thinking about different ways you can use, but there's so many different ways. You don't even have to go back to the original week 1 of 3 sets by 4 reps or 3 sets by 6 reps or whatever. You could go back to week 3 where you do week 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on week 5 you're back to week 3 and you hit those. So you could hit 4 sets of 6 runs, and you can manipulate any other variables such as distance, intensity, rest times, or even multiple versions of these. When I say manipulate the variables, people often think, okay, I'll change one thing. So what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to add more distance, keep everything else the same. You can add more distance and you can still take away 30 seconds from the rest between sets. You can change lots of them at the same time. But if you are making these changes from week to week or from block to block, and you notice you're not hitting the times or you're not hitting the goals, you need to reevaluate, because that's the main thing. The main thing is you're hitting consistent times with consistent quality of running. So if that's starting to suffer, you need to reevaluate how many variables you're going to change. If you're doing this alongside the usual training, your intensity is important, as you don't want to interfere with team training or the main training you're doing. Or you may not need as much volume. Remember, the point is quality running. So what that could mean is if your intensity at training has been quite steady and you've been, so let's say this is training outside of your own running, and you've been upping the tempo running, and now you're done your first block and you're going back in, but all of a sudden your team training starts to rise, there's no need for that rise as well. You can just hit the minimum. So remember, quality running, you don't need to be doing those 24 reps. 15 reps, 3 sets of 5 might be enough at this time, as long as it's quality running. You can do these on CV machines, so you can do this kind of tempo work at percentages on a CV machine. That's only really if this extra session of running, tempo running, would leave you a bit sore, or maybe your joints can't recover. But if you're going to do extra work, I would probably propose different work than tempo work on the cardio machines. Tempo running is very good for the running because it's specifically running at certain paces and emulating what you're going to be doing in a game, or emulating a certain distance for time, things like that. So I wouldn't really be pushing the CV machine for this kind of work too often. You can leave progressions to every second week, meaning you won't increase volume until you hit a session twice. So on the demo I showed, it showed a 4-week period of progression. That could be easily an 8-week period, or even more, a 12-week period. So you don't have to up it every week. Even just the skill of doing it might be enough for you to elicit, I suppose, a progressive overload over time, rather than just jumping up the volume every week. I mean, doing the same session 3 times could be a goal. If you have a 10-day window and you're doing it 3 times and then you're going to up it again, that's fine. Doesn't have to be weekly. Again, just made it easy for me to show on a slide if I did it weekly. So then take your weekly volume into account when planning. Some weeks it may be okay to do less runs in order to cooperate with your other training volume you have on. So for example, a heavy week with the team, which I went over. That's pretty much it. Tempo runs, a great tool you can use year round, and I would highly recommend it. And again, the percentages of intensity are very important. So if you are someone who is just starting out training, or just back training with your team, give that a bit of time. You can't really rush getting that fit. it's going to take, if you're doing 3 sessions a week with the team, that might be enough. It might just be a case of doing that consistently for 3 to 6 weeks before you start to feel fit again, or before you start to kind of feel relatively fit again. This more so would be for someone who needs a little bit extra work. Maybe you're not doing much running at training. Maybe it's a lot of ball work, or maybe you're only on the pitch once or twice a week for the first couple of months or for the first few weeks. This is something you can integrate on your own. Maybe if you're in college or you live away from your club or you can't make trainings, this is something that you can do and you can progressively overload the whole time. So again, I would really recommend not doing this unless you really have to or unless you need to. That's really important. So don't feel that you have to do tempo runs to get fitter at the start of the year. Let yourself get fit and then see where you are. Or, as I said, if you're only training once or twice a week with the team, this is something you can do for your 3rd session. The other thing I wanted to say is in season. So when you're in season, the reason these are good is because you control intensity in every run. There's no guesswork. You can bring that intensity down to 60% and get a good quality running session, covering a lot of ground, and it will not negatively impact or interfere with your next session with the club or even with your gym sessions because you're controlling that intensity. So again, the intensity is the most important thing when measuring your volume here. The distances are important. No one's going to really be covering 5+K in these kind of runs for GA, but you are controlling the intensity, and 3 kilometers running at 80% is a lot different than 3 kilometers running at 60%. So take the rest of the week into account when you are planning your runs. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.